Alright guys, I'm Vincent Curkov, and we're going to talk about my Worthy entry. The Worthy is Atomic Mass Games' painting competition that is at Adepticon every year. This was the second year. I decided to participate in this year. Uh, my entry is a beach-themed Cabal list, which started off as just kind of a funny goof I liked to talk about, and then I started to make it a reality, and then I realized I could just paint it to the best of my abilities and enter it in the Worthy. In this video, we're going to go through the hobbying that I did to make it, what the entry looked like, what I felt like participating in the competition, where I'd like to see the competition go from here. All right, so let's start off. So we have, I essentially painted 5 models for this, and I entered in the squad category. There are 3 categories at the Worthy. There is single miniature, duel, and squad. Single miniature is 1 miniature, duel is 2 miniatures, and then squad is up to 5 miniatures, although it seems like that's pretty all over the place as to how that's counted. Like, for example, like sometimes it's easy. You have 5 bases like I do. That's the cap 5 models. But sometimes people will put them all on a diorama base, and then it seems unclear how many models you're allowed to have. It's very weird, but I would really like to see the category actually like changed to diorama. But this is what I went with. So these are the Cabal minis out of the new core set. I started off with Crossbones is my first one here. Ooh, there we go. Holding these things in focus is kind of difficult. So this is based on the Crossbones Merciless Merc. I've renamed him Crossbones the Moist Merc. And this is a 100% Atomic Mass Games mini, except the legs are a 3D print. Trying to sculpt feet is difficult, and Googling to try to find 3D prints of barefoot feet was also a thing I don't recommend you do, and I fell down quite a rabbit hole, but I found these. Maybe I can put them up, but essentially there was like a elf beach party themed thing that I found these feet in, and I was able to use them. If I was to do this again, it can be kind of hard to tell here, but the you can see the layer lines on his feet and on his legs, and I think it's a little bit difficult there. The putty work here, essentially I bumped into 2 problems. So first of all, one of the things that I'm really proud of on this miniature is it seems on first blush really obvious where the line is for like, you know, I cut it off right below his shorts and then I glued the feet in. That's not actually true. He has quite a bit of his pant leg left. The seam on his leg, you'd think it'd be up here, right? But it's actually closer to here with the putty hiding it. If you really look for it, you can see that these legs are like back here. If you can, oof, I can't get a really good link, but like here, I think I have a little bit rougher of a sculpt line there. And you can kind of see that there's a seam. So I did that to like hide where your eye thinks the seam is, because the seam looks flawless up here, because it is flawless. It's sculpted into the miniature. To try to like hide my crimes. The bottom of his pant leg is actually his shorts is the holster for the gun, so that like let me use like built-in detail to like create the shorts and the short line. The other issue with this one that I has mistaken, I think you can see it when it's held at a normal level, it's hard to tell, but when you put it here, you can see that his foot, like the feet are 2 different lengths, because the model that this was originally sculpted or was originally borrowed from, like his shorts hung lower on one side, and I didn't do a great job of leveling the feet, and so because I clipped here evenly, and then the feet were different lengths, so I mounded up some putty, and his foot's on putty, and then it's half painted sand, half painted like a thicker flip flop. Cool, so that's Crossbones. Bucky has probably the least amount of modification of anybody. He's entirely an AMG model. There's no changes at all. I have sculpted flip-flops on him, or not flip-flops, little like flippers, and I have a pin sculpted into his mask to form the snorkel. Uh, this model just makes me laugh every time. The idea of like a Bucky being a blonde really makes me giggle. Uh, on here, I'm particularly proud of trying to make the cooler, the Foreman cooler, but also the cooler is, you can tell that I kind of ran out of time here, and like the blends aren't as good as the rest of the mini as well. I tried to distract from that a little bit by doing the wine bottle illusion. I don't know how well this is going to pick up on camera, but to make it look like there is actively wine in here or soda or whatever, instead of it just being a blue bottle. The fact I learned for this mini. I've done it. I attempted it once before and it didn't come out as well. I thought it came out really well. And if you hold it at the specific angle, the illusion really works. And if you don't, it falls apart. Let's see if I can find there, I think. Anyway, yeah. So that's Bucky, or the Summer Soldier, comma operative. All right. Moving to what is probably the most intense conversion work here is Red Skull, and I'm going to try to cut to some of the more specific changes here. But there's a ton of sculpting work on him. So legs are 3D prints. Legs are from 2 different models because the first leg I tried to put on here snapped, and it snapped like across the toes, like the one spot I couldn't fix it. And the second foot is less optimal because it has a lip from where the plate was that's hard to separate. I tried to hide it with sand and sand coloring, but you can still see it. It's still there. I also think like the bucket's not perfectly in his hand, but I think it's okay. The original plan was to have him have a shovel, and it turns out I just can't sculpt the shovel, and I don't own a 3D printer, so I didn't have time to get a friend to 3D print me a shovel. So we went with a bucket. I think it turned out okay. I also was able to stabilize it by gluing it to the sandcastle. I really like the story of they're on the beach and he just found the cube and it was under buried in the sand. Sandcastle's all hand sculpted. The pillars are green stuff, and then this is plasticard, and then it's sculpted kind of crudely, but it's a sandcastle, so I just covered it in sand texture, and I was able to hide like all my crimes and all my mistakes on it. His shorts, like the lip of these shorts, is they're the bottom of his coat. So like his shirt on the original model has like a tucked in pant, or like a shirt that's under the belt, and that's where these shorts come from. And I think they blend into it really well. So like this all this like texture here, that's from the original mini. I was able to save. To do the abs, I dug out a bunch of the detail here. I flattened it all out, and I dug into it a little bit so that I could put the sculpt here. It's not perfect. The guy has no collarbone, which I think if I was to do this again, I would try to like sculpt a better collarbone type thing up here. Oh well. But I think like the white and the red, and like I think it really pops, and I really am proud with how he turned out for a goof. The other issue is he has a leg warmer here and not up here because, again, they're from 2 different minis and the legs broke on me. Thankfully, at the vast majority of angles on this model, you can't see both legs at the same time, so I think you largely get away with it. Lastly, we have the ones that I'm the proudest of, which are the Ultron and Ultron drones that are beach themed. The Ultron drones have they're 3D printed rescue torpedoes for like Baywatch, and then all the shorts are hand sculpted on. This took me forever, mostly because of just having to paint this much non-metallic metal. Like, this is 40 hours in painting on this mini alone because it's 5 separate models that all have non-metallic metal and are all casting shadows over each other. They were painted in separate sets. I painted the 3 guys in the ground separately and the 2 guys in the air together, like on a little piece of cork. It just took forever. Like, I'm really happy with how they look, but it just took me a really, really long time. I do think that non-metallic metal is one of the things that I paint pretty well. Um, but because I think the non-metallic metal's done so well, I think that the shorts show off that I don't have as good of a grasp of like bathing suit texture. They just kind of look like they're just kind of painted red. The other thing that was really complicated about this is the base for the Ultron drones is really bespoke to the Ultron drones, and they kind of have to go back the same way. And I realized this very early when doing this conversion, so this is actually their original base. I've just clipped it a ton and covered it in sand texture to hide that it's their original base, but it is, so that way I can line up all their feet and they all fit together correctly. And then lastly, I have Volleyball Ultron. He is top half Ultron 1, bottom half Ultron 2 from the 2 different core sets. And then the volleyball is suspended by a little pin that is actually quite hard to see, but it's a pin that I painted black to try to hide it as much as I could. The vast majority of angles, it really sells that the volleyball's floating. I tried initially just to glue it to his hand, but it just didn't look very good. And it also wasn't very secure. Like, I would have had to pin it regardless. This is a through pin, which was really convenient. So I like drilled all the way through his wrist, so that it had the maximum like security for it. It also let me test the different lengths of it, like what did it look like all the way touching and what did it look like farther away. I think this is the best angle that I could find. The bottom here is his, like his built-in, blast wave, and I've tried to like make it appear that it's pushing through the beach, and I just covered it in beach texture and painted it like the rest of the beach stuff. I think you can kind of tell that I was the best at sculpting shorts with his shorts, because I have like much finer lines on the waistband, and I spent a lot more time on this one. I don't know, I kind of wish I had put a little bit more time in the other ones, but hey, here we are. The shorts also work out really well, as they hide the fact that the legs like aren't meant for each other and don't match up. If these were organic shapes, they'd be much easier to hide, but because he's like, very gear oriented and very metallic, or very like metal and construction and like straight lines, trying to putty these two to fit was like a nightmare. You can actually see a little bit of like where it like way sticks out here. And I've just hidden it with the shorts entirely, and it kind of just like, I think it reads as like his hip bone or whatever, but like it's actually just like there's a huge gap here. Again, this guy took me like 20 hours to paint because of all the metal and all the blending, and I'm doing the best I can, and I'm not a particularly fast painter. So that's my entry. Hopefully you guys like enjoy me talking about it. If you have any questions about how I did any one specific technique or anything, just comment down below. My sculpting technique is self-taught and learned on YouTube. Modern Synthesis is who I looked at to, see the original, like to initially learn sculpting. I think you will find that when you just go for it, it's a lot easier than you think it is. Getting a good dental tool and some rubber color shapers, I think, are the things that really unlocked it for me. Like the ability to smooth the putty correctly really helped. I'm sorry I didn't film any of this, but like the plan wasn't to do a video, and then like a bunch of people have asked me to do one, so we're doing one. As far as how I did in the competition, uh, the Worthy is a rubric based competition, so it's not just the three best models get prizes. It is uh, if you paint to a bronze level standard, you get bronze. If you paint to a silver level standard, you get silver. If you paint to a gold level standard, you get gold. It's like they can give out as many or as few of the prizes as they want to based on their expectations and their statistics. I walked away empty handed at this competition. So everything I'm about to say kind of comes with that grain of salt that, like, I was hoping to do a bronze. Like, I've seen the stuff that comes in this competition. I'm not at silver or gold level, like, and I understand that. That being said, I think my stuff looks pretty good. The thing that I was also really excited about during the Worthy competition was the critique, was to get there and get a lot of feedback on my mini and talk about it. And my critique just wasn't that good. I was a little bit disappointed. The person that I talked to was very nice, and I get that, like, talking to somebody who didn't place can be, kind of a blame game and have to justify it. And, like, it's unclear to me whether the person critiquing me was one of the judges or not. She ultimately just, like, wasn't a super great communicator, and I really had to work to pull information out of them. There was essentially, so the feedback was largely like, I clearly spent a lot of time in certain places. Like, my non-metallic metal is clearly, like, majority of this piece is taken up by, like, these huge NMM blends that all look really well, and then it's very clear that I did not spend this level of time on this. And she had said that if I had taken this amount of care and this amount of time on the shorts as well, that would have moved me up. The one that was really disappointing for me is, and I've heard this from a bunch of people that have done the competition before, and or not done the competition before, from a bunch of people that also got critiques this year, and they did this exact same line to me. Is they go, what is the destiny of these pieces? Are these gaming pieces? Do you game with these? And my answer is yes. Like, I'm not going to paint minis for a miniature game without the intention to game with them. And to me, that largely comes from a place of, the gaming table is a way to show off your work in a socially acceptable way. Like, if it's an art piece, I can't carry that around with me to the game store and make people at a tournament or an event look at it. It goes to the one painting competition, then it's done, and then its life is over. It sits on my shelf and gathers dust. So I don't really want to do that. I want my miniatures to be seen time and time and time again. That's not their opinion of it. They think that these pieces that are coming into their competition, if you want to walk with a medal, they are for that competition only. And they need to be on some sort of plinth or non-gaming base and not formatted in a gaming way if you want to place. I'm a little bit annoyed by that because the rules say you can put them on a gaming base. It's like, put a gaming base or a plinth. Now, the rules don't say that they have to give you a prize. Like, you could be the best painted thing there, and if you're not on a plinth, you don't win. There's nothing that placed this year that wasn't on a plinth or on a display board. I didn't have one. I wish I did. I wish I had done one. I would have taken the time had I understood these rules. Going forward, so I first of all think, as a gaming company, it's a little bit pretentious to have that be a qualifier, but I do think for, like, the top level, the very tip top, like the gold prize, that can totally be an acceptable thing. I would like to see their rubric move off that you can place bronze without it, but the way it was discussed with me and the way that it was discussed with a lot of people I talked to was, if it wasn't on a plinth, they didn't even look at it, which is disappointing. Like, I put 200 hours into this, and that's disappointing. That being said, there were some really gorgeous pieces. Jonathan Ho's squad that won was incredible. It looked truly amazing. But I don't know. I am somewhat disappointed with my experience of it. I don't think it's going to stop me from competing again, but if you're going to do the worthy, put it on a plinth. Like, that should be your number one takeaway from this. If it's not on a display base, if it's on a gaming base, you will not place no matter how well you paint the model. But with that said, I don't want this to end on a bummer note because, like, I did have a good time, and like how the competition itself went, I have an incredible piece that I can show off because I put it on gaming bases, and I'm gonna play some Beach Boy Cabal at some events near you, hopefully. If you guys have any questions about how I did any of this, put it in the comments down below. Hit the subscribe button, and guys, don't forget that even when it comes to painting, fun is a finite resource.